We've got a great show coming up for you on American Black Journal. A new exhibit at the Charles H. Wright Museum illustrates why African Americans should vote. Plus, a Detroit artist pulls together a collection of international posters with political themes. And Wayne State University comes up with a unique way to display art during the pandemic. It's all about art on this episode of American Black Journal.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support also provided by the Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
The DTE Foundation proudly supports 50 years of American Black Journal in covering African American history, culture, and politics. The DTE Foundation and American Black Journal, partners in presenting African American perspectives about our communities and in our world.
Also brought to you by Nissan Foundation, Ally, and viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. There's never been a bigger push than what we've seen this year to get African Americans to vote in Tuesday's presidential election. There's a lot at stake for the Black community, and infrequent voters are especially being urged to cast their ballots. The struggle African Americans endured in order to get the right to vote is the focus of a new exhibition at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. I spoke with the museum's CEO, Neil Barclay, about the collection of paintings, photographs, memorabilia, and documents titled Voting Matters. Okay, so let's talk about Voting Matters, this wonderful exhibition you guys have at the Wright.
Yeah, well, it opens September 27th, and it's a kind of interactive multimedia exhibit. It looks at the role of African Americans from pre-construction through the present day and the development of, what we think about as the right to vote, right? Was it created all by the in-house team? So it's our first exhibit that's been created totally in-house. It's designed by our in-house designers, and it's spectacular.
Yeah. So give me an idea of what kinds of things I might see at this exhibition.
We look at it in 5 parts. We kind of first start with the kind of Reconstruction and Reconstruction period, kind of lays the foundation for what was happening in the U.S. with, African Americans in general and the abolitionists and Frederick Douglass and those kinds of folks that were active in that time, and where we began to see African Americans winning local elections. You get into post-Reconstruction, though, we start to look at some of the things that were happening to disenfranchise African Americans during the Civil Rights Movement, et cetera. We then look at the women's suffrage movement, and there in particular, after the passing of the 15th Amendment, some folks were given the right to vote, but not women. And so the role of African American women in kind of the women's suffrage movement is usually understated, but they are the first people that began to fight for women's rights to vote, because some men were given the right to vote, but not women at that point. And that kind of leads to the women's suffrage movement. So the abolitionist movement that's before that sort of looks at that. We then look at things like the Electoral College, very much in the news today, and kind of the racist underpinnings of that structure, right? And how selecting the president has resulted in sort of a disconnect between, I know you've talked about this a lot in your program, between, the popular vote and this sort of Electoral College that's put in place. And lastly, we look at gerrymandering. And, the sort of distinction that the Supreme Court recently made between political gerrymandering and sort of gerrymandering that's based on race, basically allowing gerrymandering to continue, right? And what we know as African Americans in particular, a lot of that is race-based, right? So that distinction is something without a meaning for many of us. But that's kind of the structure of the exhibition. It's got 5 different parts. It's in 2 of our main galleries, and it's really great. I hope folks will come out and see it.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing that always stands out to me about this issue is how American it is. I mean, this is an American story. It is maybe the American story. The journey of African Americans from property to full citizenship, and it's marked by the vote in many ways. It also strikes me that to have this exhibit right now is the right inflection point, right? It is the right.
It really is, isn't it? Right? I mean, probably more so than we might have anticipated, a year and a half ago when we, started to work on this. But certainly we knew this would be an important moment, right? But to your point, I think it's really important to understand this is really an American story. It's a great example of how African Americans kind of add to the dialogue about what it means to be American by telling more of our individual story. It has such resonance today because I think so few people understand where a lot of this disconnect between the popular vote and the electoral college, where it actually came from. And we really look at that really critically in the exhibition, right?
Yeah. I tell this story a lot, and I find myself telling it more now to try to make the point about how all of this history lives so powerfully in our current lives. But my father was born in 1933 in Mississippi, and he grew up and joined the Air Force right before the Korean War started. He served 2 or 3 years during the war in the military, and he came home to Mississippi when he was done and could not vote. Couldn't vote for another 12 years, really, because it took the passage of the Voting Rights Act to make the 15th Amendment have meaning. And I tell that story because this is not some ancestor I read about in a book.
Right.
This is the first man I knew, and I think that's lost on a lot of people right now. People think this struggle for voting, this idea of trying to ensure that people's rights are respected is ancient.
Right. It's old history to many people. It's really still lives today, doesn't it?
It's the story of our lives as much as our ancestors.
Very much so. And it's one of the reasons that we really, and this is sort of a general approach I'm taking to the exhibition design at the Wright now, is to look for those issues that have a tremendous historical context, but are also so resonant today, right? As a way of giving voice to why people feel so deeply about some of these things. And your story is a great example. This is not like just a theoretical story. It's something that happened within your own family, and I think happened in a lot of people's family, right? And these struggle for these rights too was not just an African American story. Many whites and others really participated in this history as well. But it is sort of a way of talking about some of our shared history that still has resonance today, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Is there any possibility that an exhibition like this could travel, for instance? I mean, you said that you guys,
we actually designed it to be able to kind of travel within sections or as a whole. I mean, we have the space to do an exhibit of the scale, right? Yeah. But a lot of our sister institutions might only be able to take the women's suffrage section or the gerrymandering section or whatever. And so it's actually designed to be taken apart that way. And that's certainly our goal for it, is to kind of get it around to other people. We also have developed an app for it that really goes deeper into some of the issues. So you can also get that. That we developed, and it kind of looks at each of those sections and then gives you a lot more information if you might want it as well, right? Yeah. And then we're developing in this moment, we're developing kind of a virtual walkthrough as well, that people can kind of see it if they're not able to come into the museum. Right?
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, the pandemic museums, that's a whole other show.
So we've done a couple of things. One, we've extended it really, was scheduled, I'm trying to remember when it was originally scheduled to close. I think right after Black History Month or something like that. It's not going to be open till May to allow people to see this material even after the sort of election moment is there. In fact, it might be even more helpful to explain some things at that moment.
Depending on what happens.
What happens, you know. So we're doing that, and we're also going to do a catalog, you know, that will come out with a lot of this information in it that people will be able to get. So we're developing a lot of tools. But in terms of the museum, they have to register. So they go onto our site and make a reservation to come in at a particular time. I'm remembering they're in 20-minute intervals or something like that. And so then you can come in, because we are limited in the number of people that can be in the space at any given time. But as long as you register, it shouldn't be a problem. We're open now Thursdays through Sundays, so we're not open every day of the week, folks should know. We're hoping to extend that if we can. I don't know if we're going backwards or forward with the COVID issues, shall we say, but yeah. But that's what we're doing today.
A creative look at politics and social justice is on display at the Marygrove Gallery of Art. Detroit artist Donna Jackson curated the exhibit called Posters on Politics 2020. The works are created by local and international designers, and they focus on political events, philosophies, figures, and ideologies. There are more than 200 posters from countries such as Poland, Greece, South Korea, United Kingdom, Spain, and Iran. I talked with Donna Jackson about this unique display of political expression. Donna Jackson, thanks very much for joining us on American Black Journal.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us about Posters on Politics.
Backstory, it started in 2016. It was kind of the way after the first election, or the election in 2016, I saw how people were kind of reacting to just what has happened, or what happened, you know. And I felt like people were talking over each other. People were a little bit upset, you know. And I was like, I think we need to take a beat and kind of slow down.
Take a break from all of that.
And this is 2016, so, you know. So what I do is I develop exhibitions. That's what I do. And so you always kind of go to what you know. Mm-hmm. And I decided to develop an exhibition of posters to get people to see not just what they believe, but what other people believe and were thinking, and why they were thinking those things. So that's where Posters on Politics started. Now, this was supposed to be a local thing. It was about to be Detroit, Michigan. We're going to do this thing. We're going to talk about politics. And once it was posted on social media, it opened up. It was not what I thought it was going to be, but it became more of an amazing thing. So,
So talk about the kinds of posters that caught your interest for the exhibition, and what you hope people are able to draw out of them.
Well, some of the posters that really catch my attention or caught my attention were those that were about America, but were created by people that weren't Americans, and their translation of our political experiences. That was very, very it really caught my eye, and it really got me thinking how much the American political world is taken in by the rest of the world, and how much they see, and how much our world is a part of theirs, you know? That was probably one of the biggest aha moments I had with doing this project.
Yeah, and the exhibition is at Marygrove College. Give us a sense of what people will experience.
Well, when you go in, you're going to see posters galore. There are over 200 posters on these walls at Marygrove. They go from things like climate change to even Black Lives Matters, because these are the things that are happening here in 2020. Of course, the pandemic is big on all of our minds, regardless of where you are in the world. So you're going to see some of that, but also thoughts on immigration, thoughts on folks that actually truly love what our president is doing, and then those that may not. So you see all of these different beliefs are on that wall. And it's a lot to take in, but that's the point.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different political standings in our world, and to go in there and say, aha, maybe there's people that believe what I believe, but looking at this wall, there's other things to believe in too, and to think about. So, yeah.
One of the things that strikes me about political posters in particular is there's, kind of the manifest message, right? The thing that it says or the thing that it depicts, but then there's often kind of a nuance behind that, a complexity that if you kind of linger and look at something that you can kind of draw out of it. I would imagine that it would almost be like sensory overload for the sheer volume of what you've been collecting. But talk about the messaging that's inherent in these kinds of posters and how it can be more complex.
I think that's one of the reasons I did this. I do think that it is very easy for someone to say, I am in this political box and this is what I believe, and not understand the nuances under that. All because someone believes this doesn't mean that they don't believe other things that you may believe. It's things when we're talking about politics sometimes get so black and white. But if you see a poster or any kind of artwork on the wall that's talking about political ideologies, right? And it's something that you think about. You don't think about that as a Republican or a Democrat or whatever. You just think this is something I understand. I get this. One of the other things that I think I love about this project too is these are coming from different countries. So they're not a lot of words. It's really more symbolism. So me in America, I can look at this and at these symbols and understand what this person is saying about their belief, their ideology, their political experience, whatever. And those are the things that allow us to observe and reflect a little bit deeper than what we would when someone says, I believe this and you don't believe that, and therefore it's more thoughtful. Yeah. And I think that's needed right now in politics and just in the world general.
It really is. Also talk about, you started this in 2016, an inflection point, I guess, in the discussion that we're having in this country.
Yes.
But we've had 4 years now.
Right.
Of life under this administration and life with that tension,
right.
Front and center in a way that it probably hasn't been for most of us, haven't experienced that before. Talk about the progression of this project over that time. How has it changed for you in the last 4 years?
Actually, one of the best things about this project is getting to know first designers here in America that I probably never would have met if it wasn't for this project. And then that same getting to know designers from all around the world and having those conversations about not just about politics, just about life. I have friends in the Ukraine telling me about their kids, Wow. And that really, the humanity that came out of this political experience, that was like one of the best things, or the progression that came out of this. At first, this was really about, let me create something to get people to understand people, or not be in this mindset of, just in an angered mindset. I wanted that to stop. But now I'm like, this has become like a world for me.
Yeah.
And a connection to the world. That's personal. The other thing that has come out of this, like in 2016, I saw a lot of posters about American politics.
Mm-hmm.
In 2020, this is really about global expression of politics, what is going on globally. And so I see how we have grown, meaning as designers, how we use messaging. In those 4 years, I thought for sure I was going to have 400 posters about Trump. I thought for sure, but it is very, very much a global experience that you see on these walls.
And finally today, Wayne State University has launched a series of creative works displayed on a billboard near the campus. The project is called In the Air, Voices from Detroit and Beyond. One Detroit associate producer, Will Glover, has the details.
Tom, tell us a little bit about what we are looking at with In the Air, Voices from Detroit.
We, in about mid-March, we had to transition to online exhibitions instead of in-person exhibitions at our galleries. And we were trying to think of creative ways to do that. So we started with an online platform, WayneStateGalleries.org. And we just started hosting virtual exhibitions. But we also wanted to showcase works in person somehow. And we were trying to figure out all these different creative ways to do that. And through the Elaine L. Jacob Gallery to serve that mission, we were able to use our endowment to showcase works on a billboard in Detroit that could still serve as an in-person exhibition for local and national artists.
Right. And so it's my understanding that there are going to be artists' work up on this billboard for not just a few days or a few weeks. It's going to be months. Each artist gets, I believe, a month on the billboard.
Yes, that's correct. So we transitioned our exhibition season for the Elaine L. Jacob Gallery to the billboard location, which will also be online at our website when it's documented. But there are a series of works by 8 local and national artists. Each will have their artwork up in 1 month durations from September through April.
Right. And so where is this billboard going to be if there is anyone who wants to travel down to the city to check it out?
This billboard is located on the corner of South Woodward and East Canfield in Detroit. And it's above the Hopcat restaurant.
Jessica, tell us a little bit about what your thought process was, what message you wanted to send.
I thought about a lot of things. I first thought I was going to do something in line with the Crystal City is Alive, which is a project I have out with Jeff Mills and Eddie Folks, just some kind of something more celebratory around Detroit. But then I was like, no, Jessica, say something about Sandra Bland. Like, say something about Black women's bodies. And it's timely because it was just happened with Breonna Taylor. And so it's what people will see is an excerpt of my poem, We Want Our Bodies Back, which is in my 5th book. It's here. So it's a long poem. So the poem cannot fit on the billboard, but it's an excerpt of the poem. And it's also a photograph. I did an exhibition around We Want Our Bodies Back and the idea of just honoring Sandra Bland and what happened to her. I collaborated with Sabrina Nelson, who's a wonderful painter here in Detroit, and photographer Piper Carter, who I asked. They're just my friends. I was in my basement. Sabrina painted my entire body with my poem, and Piper shot the photos. And that has been an exhibition in San Francisco and in Kansas City and here in Detroit during Black Morocco. We put it in the exhibition for BWR. And so that's what I wanted to do. So you'll see my back and you'll see the poem, a piece of my body, and the poem is on my body, and then it's just text. And so I think it's really beautiful. I mean, some people that I sent it to poets around the globe that I'm connected to, they were like, yes, more poems on billboards.
You're starting off very strong. You set the bar really high, starting with Jessica Care Moore. So who else are we going to see? What other artists are involved? And yeah, just give us a little preview of what they're doing.
We have 8 artists in total. 4 of them are local artists that are Kresge Art Fellows. I mean, they're local in the sense that they're from Detroit, but they exhibit nationally and internationally. And then we have 4 artists that are just national. And they work in mediums from, again, poetry, printmaking, photography, graphic design, painting. So we wanted to have these diverse mediums, but also artists that work in a way where their artwork is somewhat like, it's symbolic. It can just be an image and still, have an underlying energy behind it rather than like literal words. So we're trying to just keep it fresh every month.
And that'll do it for us this week. You can find out more about our guests at AmericanBlackJournal.org. And as always, you can connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. We'll see you next time.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support also provided by the Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
The DTE Foundation proudly supports 50 years of American Black Journal in covering African American history, culture, and politics. The DTE Foundation and American Black Journal, partners in presenting African American perspectives about our communities and in our world.
Also brought to you by Nissan Foundation, Ally, and viewers like you. Thank you.